at one point, he didn't have as big an operation as Village Books,
Yeah,
but the growth differential has been
yeah.
significant.
But I remember when they started going from just selling books to other things. That was pretty.
And they opened up a bookstore again, like recently.
We can get books on there still.
Oh, absolutely. But that was their main, that's what they started with, was just books.
Well, it's 6 p.m. I'll call the meeting to order. Begin with the land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that we gather on the ancestral homelands of the Coast Salish peoples, specifically Nooksack and Lummi tribes, who have lived in the Salish Sea Basin throughout the San Juan Islands and the North Cascades watershed from time immemorial. On behalf of everyone here, we want to express our deepest respect and gratitude for our Indigenous neighbors, the Nooksack and Lummi tribes, for their enduring care and protection of our shared lands waterway. Next up,
with allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next is approval of the agenda. Do we have anything?
No changes.
On? Okay, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Motion to approve the agenda is written. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Good of the order.
Yeah, so a couple things. I realized that I hadn't shared out any results from the Northwest Washington Fair from when our students were out there. So just a few names of folks that finished pretty well in their areas were Kennedy Rathjen, Grayson Zender, Raylan Wooden, and Sophia Patton, Hayden McDonald, Ayla Borden, Ruth Cranborn, Jordan Skinner, and then 19 FFA members who went through the sale made $30,000 in beef, chickens, and swine. So that's awesome. And then here's the one that I think we can really be proud of: that the FFA, Mount Baker FFA, was awarded the Doug Erickson Legacy Award for Student Behavior, Attitude, and Responsibility and Assistance. It's the second time in the 3-year history we've won that. So that's pretty awesome. Kudos to those kiddos and those supervisors. Then just a quick celebration. As we've changed, how we organize our elementary libraries, we've had an opportunity for our students in the high school transitions program to go out, and they're helping our elementary schools reshelf and get the libraries ready for the next day's classes. So it's been a pretty fun project to watch our high school students help out at the elementary level with transitions programs as they're learning job skills themselves. So something to celebrate. And in my update, you'll see that the school-based health clinic is going to be opening up in mid to late October. October 22nd is the date right now. As you know, that is not staffed by Mount Baker employees. That's a contracted service through CMAR that's working on that. And it takes pretty extensive parent permission to access that clinic through signed approval. And it's like as if you were going to CMAR in the first place, right? It's the same thing. And at the time they're opening, there won't be any vaccine treatment when they first open. Yes, that's what I have for good of the order.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is consent agenda. You entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is information from audience. Do we have anyone signed up? Okay. First up, Natalie Chavez.
Hello, my name is Natalie Chavez. Thank you for listening to public comments this evening. At the last meeting, I mentioned that the Killingly School Board in Connecticut had been under fire since they refused to sign a 5-year contract to install a federally funded school-based health clinic that would provide mental health services to minors without parental consent, which had been approved by the superintendent, but not by them. Instead, the board contracted for a similar center, but with month-to-month terms and with parental consent required and without federal grants or the rules that they might impose. This led to the school board members being personally attacked and subjected to a state investigation and a lawsuit. This evening, I want to bring to your attention another lawsuit regarding the school-based health center in Maine. This school-based health clinic gave prescription antidepressant pills in a plastic baggie to a 17-year-old girl without her parental's consent and without her parents' knowledge, as her father told the Maine Wire, which I believe that is a local news paper or news media in Maine. The girl's father, Eric Sack, found the pills, which his daughter then told him were Zoloft, and he complained to the school. At the household, they also had younger siblings that could have easily gotten into this baggie and gotten the Zoloft. The Zoloft carries a black box warning, which warns of possible serious adverse reactions, indicating the drug can cause suicidal ideation, particularly in people under age 24 when they first start taking the drug. The father kept his daughter home from school the following week to make appointments with a doctor and a therapist, a decision that then resulted in someone, either at the school or the school-based health clinic, then reporting the family to Child Protective Services, and then an investigation followed. The recent push by the US federal government to rapidly expand the number of SBHCs across the country to improve healthcare for children by offering primary care, mental health care, and other health services in schools, particularly in underserved communities in rural areas, is raising huge red flags. Critics are concerned that children might receive or be pressured into receiving unnecessary or unwanted medical interventions without their parents' knowledge or consent. A Georgia attorney, Nicole Johnson, stated, quote, "This case in Maine really is everything we worried about. It is almost the worst case scenario. A young person is getting a drug with a black box warning. They come home with it. It doesn't even have any warning label on it. The parents haven't been told, and the drug is in some plastic bag that anybody, any other child in the house or their peers could have access to. It could be a very dangerous situation," unquote. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Althea, what?
Althea.
Althea, so.
I'll be super brief. I just wanted to come and introduce myself. I'm Althea, president of the Kendall PTA. My goals this year as president is like communication, fundraising, and fun. But then when I started talking to other people in the community, there was some concern about bullying in schools and in the elementary school. So another thing that I want to do is just bring more compassion and support the programs that we have going on at Kendall. And I don't know, that's pretty much it. We're having a fall festival. It's going to be October 26th. And I'd really like everybody to be there. I don't know how it's going to turn out. We're a brand new board pretty much. But it should be fun regardless. That's the main goal. And then like bring in some money. One thing that we're currently fundraising for now also is for 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. Right now our site just says 5th and 6th, but the 4th graders have now expressed interest to get IXL learning for math and also language for the 6th graders, just so we can kind of, I have a 5th grader, and so he was really caught in that whole pandemic system where they're really disrupted in their education. We've seen the gaps there. So that's your Kendall update. I just want to be kind of a little more present because that's part of the communication is what can I bring back from these meetings to my people and everything in the school. And yeah, I've already been talking to all the teachers, trying to get people excited and get back into PTA. And that, yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for coming, speaking, and thank you for your service there with PTA.
Yeah,
And also as a point of information, board members appreciate an opportunity to attend a PTA meeting and provide update of the board and answer questions of PTA members. So if Kendall PTA would like that, you can send an email to the board and we'll find one of us
Okay, great.
will
That's
be-
super good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I just wanted to make sure you knew that.
Yeah, because I
We
think that's a
love
part of
that,
why
those opportunities.
Sometimes we
I was
can't all
showing
be
up as like a
together.
little more guidance with stuff too. So I really do appreciate it. Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Okay. So that's all I have signed up, and I didn't see anything else here. So our next item is board action, selection of superintendent consultant. We had presentations from two consultants at our last meeting, Hazard Young and Atea, and Northwest Leadership Associates. And I was thinking to just go around the room and get your feedback or observations from that as kind of start for the discussion. And then we will take a vote on choosing one of the search consultants, but I thought that we start out with a bit of discussion first. So I'll let you go first this time.
Yeah, like we talked after the last meeting, it was when they got done talking to us. Northwest Leadership, I feel they got I don't know if more aggressive is the right word for it, but a more aggressive attack, or I guess maybe just the way that 30 people seem to be on a group, which has its pros, so that's good. Both had good pros all the way around. They both had great community involvement for this process. They had a process plan for the community to be involved. They both had a timeline very set out and were willing to change with us what we felt we wanted our needs to be for that. So, yeah, I think all around there's pros in a lot of them. Like Northwest Leadership, I like the more aggressive style kind of get out there and really search for you. So I think they're both very good, and I like that on Northwest Leadership, that's for sure.
Well, thank you, Jason. Brandon, you had a chance to watch.
I watched it. I think one of the advantages for me was that I couldn't see the people. I could only see what they were showing me on the screen. So I really had a chance to listen to what they were saying. And there are two very different groups of people. HYA, I really felt that they had, they're a little more professional, straight to the point, stayed on task. I liked that they had the board portal was something that we would have access to. They also on their website would list openings, even ones that they weren't facilitating. So they, more people would just be able to see it and and she said that they get 25,000 hits and alerts on their website for people looking at who they have listed or the positions that they have listed. Versatile meeting formats and meeting times, I like that. And the only thing I didn't like was that they didn't have a lot of multi-language options for their surveys. So it was kind of like mostly just a Spanish option. So that's not going to be super helpful. I mean, the Spanish, yes, but then we also have, the Ukraine and the Russian, and even Nooksack tribe has their own language that they've been working to get going again. And as far as Northwest Leadership Associates, I think that they would do a good job. But just from what I was hearing, I felt that it was a little more lax. They were really like, just kind of like, hey, we're hanging out and we're doing this.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be kind of what they were talking about, that they had sort of a pool of people that they've already worked with. So to me, it felt like maybe it would be less of a search and more of like, we're going to dip into this little pool of folks that we have and just sort of like hand you some folks. I'm not saying that they wouldn't do as good a job, but it just seemed a little too familiar, which I also know is a benefit of them knowing our community and being a part of out here, but also that's a problem that we've had in our district for a while, is that we have people who know everybody and those people get other people the jobs. So that's kind of a flag, a red flag for me. And what was the other thing? Oh, and they did offer the flexibility in the cost, and I think that that's great. I mean, I don't think that we would get that offer from HYA. But I mean, for me, those were just some things that, like I said, I was able to just listen. I wasn't seeing anybody, so. And then the second one, they didn't advance their slides for about 10 minutes, so I was looking at the same slide and they were talking about things that were 3 or 4 slides ahead, so that was an issue.
That annoyed you.
Yeah, it did actually.
Yeah, I think they only have 6 slides.
I also have the benefit of just watching this last night, and you guys, this was like a week ago. For me.
Right.
So, yeah.
Mine's a little bit more consolidated in what I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we could run both and, like a simulation, right? Let's see what happens with either one. I think they're both professional. I think they both would do a good job. I think HYA relies more on their online network and how they cast a wide net over the country. Northwest, a little bit more of a boots on the ground approach and networking, right? And they mentioned, even like WASDA, right? Like, hey, let's get on this. So it did seem to know us really well, and like I understand you're saying that's a double-edged sword. They can cut both ways, but I guess just my gut feeling is that for a smaller district like us, who's coming out of financial difficulty, we have a story to tell, and I want someone who knows us and can kind of tell our story and sell us. And it's going to be probably more of a relationship driven decision for someone to put their application in if they feel like they know us a little bit. So that's my thought.
Danielle?
I agree with Brenna that HYA did a more professional presentation. And I spent some time reflecting after our initial sort of discussion, and it's tough for me because, the teacher in me is like, oh, A+ for good presentation, right? But when I think about, like Ed said, what I think we're going to need, the more aggressive approach of getting in and talking to people and encouraging them to apply, and their guarantee for their 2-year promise that whoever we hire, they promise 2 years. And if it doesn't work out, they will do another search with us for free. I like that. And I like that they know the district and that they can sell the district. So in that sense, they were actually more prepared, right? But they were a little fast and loose with the presentation style. And I had to kind of set that aside because I also liked that they were all 3 retired superintendents, whereas the HYA, I was asking them, the one woman was a retired superintendent and the other woman had worked for the Spokane ESD, which is absolutely relevant background. But having somebody who's done the work and having 3 somebodies who've done the work that are also familiar with our district, I think spoke to me in a powerful way. So I'm surprised because I had the same concerns you did going in.
Yeah.
That maybe we need a little bit of a fresh take on things. I could be persuaded, but I'm leaning toward the Northwest. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I agree that HYA had a more professional type presentation. I think their approach is putting all the information online and waiting for people to come to them and then sorting through that. And I really think that the approach that Northwest takes is doing that. I mean, there'll be materials paired and available, but it's that person-to-person contact. And it's not. I don't think it's just a roster of candidates. I think Mark did mention to me as he was leaving that if they were selected, he would want to make sure that we get together with them and have a brochure, have the information for the brochure ready so he can work the room at Boston. You know, that he would, and I've seen him do that every year, is going around and connecting with people and finding, and it's a difficult job to recruit for because the people who will be good at it have a lot at stake, even letting it known that they are interested in applying. And so it takes quite a bit of finesse to actually handle that. I think Northwest has done the bulk of Washington State superintendent searches for the last number of years, and I think there's a reason for that. I think their goal is to match candidates to the particulars of a particular job and community, and I'm not having a nationwide network doesn't really mean that much to me because I don't think we would do well with a superintendent come from Iowa, say, and then find out it rains here all the time, let alone everything else that's different in Washington.
It's not like there's not the internet where they can figure out what happens
Right.
here.
No, I agree. But I think and actually because the job is posted, anyone can apply in the country. So it's not like you choose one search. It's still going to be posted to the same people who just happen to see and want to apply. But it's more that, as Jason was saying, that more aggressive person-to-person approach of actually recruiting as opposed to waiting and answering questions more. And I do think, I can see what you're saying about getting an outside look at the district, but I really think we have a short time period for the community engagement. And I think knowing our community very well, which Mark does, having served here as our assistant superintendent, and Wayne has worked for our district before doing he did a study of our district office operations and our central office administration a number of years ago, and I think having that knowledge of the variety of the community, the diversity of the community is important, because you can easily not really even realize that in a community like this if you didn't know it in the first place. So that's kind of my thinking on it.
Well, listen, this isn't a hill I'm gonna die on, so.
What's that?
I said, this isn't a hill I'm willing to die on, so if everybody else is leaning more towards Northwest leadership, then I'm fine with that.
I think Northwest leadership relied on us looking at their slideshow before they came, because they mentioned that too, and I think they relied on that pretty heavy, it seemed like.
I just, the only thing for that with me is like, that's an attention to detail. I'm an attention to detail kind of person. And if you're presenting a PowerPoint that you spent all this time putting together, which they probably did, I'm sure their intern did or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, show it to me. Don't, and then also like, I can't see you. We have to think about the people. And another thing, you guys need to talk louder too. You can't hear you on there.
Where's the speaker? Maybe we need to move that in the middle
Yeah.
here.
I had to sit with my little speaker right next to my ear because I couldn't hear you.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
That is good.
Yeah, could you hear me? I try to speak up. You couldn't hear me either.
No,
That's good to know.
mine's just nitpicky things. I think they're both gonna do a good job. It's what they do, and it's just two very different styles,
Mhm.
and so. That's all. Yeah, for sure.
Any other discussion? If not, I entertain a motion.
What motion, Russ?
A motion to, and you have to name the search consultant.
I'd like to make a motion that we hire Northwest search for the superintendent.
Second.
Permanent superintendent search.
Okay, move in second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. And I will contact both the search consultants at the conclusion of this meeting, so they both know how to look through that. Thank you. Next up is study session. We have two items we wanted to include. First is the strategic plan goal for communication, and I was pulled it up on the screen, but where I put some notes here. If you've had a chance, or if you pull it up, of the objective one or in the strategic plan, you can kind of go over those items, but I was kind of thinking of starting out with on district communication, what's going good? How, as far as us trying to meet the intent of the strategic plan, what do you feel like we're doing well?
Is it
Yeah, I'll
possible-
start with you, Danny.
Sure. Is it possible to pull up the strategic plan on Zoom so
Mhm.
folks at home can see?
Yeah.
Well, objective one, establish consistent and reliable methods of communication using a variety of platforms to ensure the Mount Baker community is kept informed. So I think,
Close it.
they're right here.
Cool.
Well, definitely the superintendent communications, that's a big difference, because when my daughter started school, we didn't have those. So I think that that's great. The website is good. I don't look at it too much because I've had in the past, had a lot of hard time finding things on there, so I kind of just forget about it as a tool, because there are some navigation issues, and then I have people coming to me like, hey, where do I find this? And I'm like, let me look for you, and then, oh, I can't find it. So, like,
Mhm.
that's when I asked you about the calendar.
Yeah.
But then I eventually did find it, I just had to search the right word phrasing.
Yep.
So I don't know how all of that works, and I'm sure it's a lot to take care of for, like, it's because it's not even, we don't have a dedicated person to that. It's probably, so Katie that's doing it.
Yeah, who has a whole different job.
She's got another job, right?
Mhm.
So that's, and then going forward, looking further down, one of the 20 21 school year things was to, or no, sorry, yeah, it is still 21, involve student leaders in communication. And I don't know if that's even a possibility. I mean, obviously giving them like free rein of the website is not a good idea, but like creating content for it or doing the writing or something like that. I don't know if there's classes that would fit into, but then again, that's putting more pressure on everybody who already has a huge workload. So. But one of the other ones was the highlight and celebrate school staff and student accomplishments. That would be a good spot to, that's number 5 up there. And with that would be a good spot to involve the student leaders in the communication. Because they could do that on their don't they have a TikTok?
Yeah.
I don't do TikTok. And
Someday you will.
no, no, I don't think I need. I'm gonna stick with searching the news app. That's what I do. So that's just some of the things that jumped out to me.
Other thoughts about what you feel is going really well?
I agree 100% on the superintendent's informed. That's going good, and I think what we got with Phil made things better, and it's continuing to go that way. And I think I like that. It's really good. It informs everybody, and it gives something for them to look forward to. So it's always happening. So, and with moving forward with Nick's plans of meeting with other schools for the set times is great, because I don't recall that happening ever, not very often when my daughter was here and stuff. So I think that's a good step moving forward for this plan.
Yeah, accessibility to the people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would never, I mean, not that I never in a million years would have thought like, oh, I should go talk to the superintendent. Which is probably a good thing for me, you know, like we didn't have reason to, but people that do have a reason to, maybe they would do it more when it's like you're out there. So I do like that.
Good.
For the format for discussion, we're gonna talk about what's going good and then what needs to.
Yeah, I think that, it's just basically, what I, reviewing the strategic plan piece by piece. And if we can capture suggestions
Okay.
for improvement, that would be, but I wanted to kind of start out with what's going good.
Okay.
And then, so if you.
Yeah, I'm always focused on what we can do
things-
better and what's coming up. Yeah, I like the new monthly format for communication, so. And I assume that people are getting that all the different ways that they get in email and whatnot, so, yeah, I like that format. I think it's effective. And I know, we get some communication from the junior high as well, different things, so yeah, that's good.
I enjoy having the superintendent report. And as a parent, before I was ever on the board, I enjoyed that channel was happening, and that it continues to happen. As a parent and now as a board member, I think that's an important channel because it's district-wide, right? And so you're getting that big picture, and I like that. And then I also do get communication from an elementary school that my kids go to, right? And so that kind of comes through in my email, through another channel. I've downloaded the app when my kids started school here. And I like that there's an app. There's an app. And I was so excited as a parent and a new parent to the district to see an app, like, cool, okay, I just download this and I'll have all the stuff. I like that we have that tool. And I'm looking at some of our other things. I feel like as a parent in the district, I get the information that I need for what's going on with my students and what's gonna be coming up, and I get it when I need it. So I think that's going well.
Yeah, for me, I really appreciate the budget and finance tab that Brian has put together. Particularly with our financial challenges, I think it's a good tool to communicate to the community, where we're at, and it includes a nice mix of both numbers and narrative, and I think both are necessary. I think a lot of people, the narrative reaches them better, actually, and so I think that having that mix makes it much more effective. So I really appreciate the work that you put into that, Brian, and I think it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it is an important. It is an important role that we play within your community, and so I think it's valuable. And that's and I echo everything else here. I like the superintendent's reports are good, and so that's kind of what wants to out. So now I get a chance of what we can improve. So Ed, you were chomping the bit. Why don't you start?
So I'll name a challenge I see without having a solution for it. So it's not a criticism. But feels like when there's an incident in school or something bad happens, the communication that goes out, it has to be kind of sterilized or put in a way that can make things sound worse, because people's minds start filling in the blanks because they don't know what happened, and it's a lot worse than what it would be in just a conversation with somebody that you might have, and what happened. Like, oh, okay, now I get it. All right, and it's not as bad. So I don't know how that gets stressed, because we don't want to get sued, and people are always going to find some criticism and whatever you say, but still, it seems like there's some room for improvement in that, in a way that doesn't make people more upset or scared or whatever.
Or that doesn't infringe on student privacy law.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was gonna take a moment to jump in here, because I appreciate what you both said, because I think as we've navigated this school year early on, we've had, as you mentioned, some, privacy protections, but then that's leading to vagueness. And you're exactly right, Ed, that when someone doesn't have information, they create their own information. And that can be far more dangerous than what the actual challenge was to begin with. That said, I'm very grateful for the relationship that Bridget Rossman has been working on with the safety portion of the ESD at 189. So much so that actually at our last cabinet meeting, the threat assessment coordinator for the ESD, who's the retired chief of police from Burlington, came and met with us and kind of talked us through communications and how best to fit communications. And it was nice to hear him speak in a much more nuanced way. So many times we'd always heard about communication in emergency situations being very cut and dry and very sterile. But he really, he talked about the communication he had as the chief of police in Burlington, and about knowing your community and knowing the context and the nuances to that. So that actually, in my opinion, gave that room a little bit of a sigh of relief, a little bit, knowing that we do have some maybe perhaps a little bit wider barriers wherein we can share information that is clear enough, that doesn't leave things to your imagination, but also protects student privacy. So, it was a good chance for us to debrief what happened this year so far and how to improve it as we move forward. So very good timing that you brought that up.
Yeah, and part of it might be just acknowledging in that communication that, there, what was the word you used earlier about the privacy?
Student privacy law, FERPA.
Yeah, I think you can kind of acknowledge the restrictions, in that people understand that you're not being purposely vague,
Right,
that there is a reason for that. And
Yeah.
that way they know that, okay, you're not trying to cover something up. You just have these rules in
Right.
place that you have to follow, and that could be like a standard.
Yeah.
Thing that goes in there.
That's a nice acknowledgement to acknowledge that some of the information with this incident is considered private under,
Mhm.
you know, X, Y, and Z law.
Yeah.
Right, because it isn't just about us keeping it private for the sake of the student. It's the law,
Yeah.
Yeah,
right? And so there's a liability there.
Mhm.
If, you know, because you might say, well, if somebody did something really horrible, why is their privacy something more important? Well, it's the law.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's good to hear that you guys got some extra training
Mhm.
from someone who can kind of help.
Yeah.
Know how to balance those two things, because the community awareness is important, especially in an emergency kind of a situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good reminder to keep putting that information in there each time that a letter otherwise would feel incomplete. You know, I think, you read the, Cascade Daily News, and they're always, getting after, get after school districts or other government entities for not providing full information when those are things that they know as well as we do, that we can't provide full information. We can't name this, this person and so on and so forth. So it's sometimes so then it becomes incumbent on us, since we're the only one who can control our own communication, to continue to insert that kind of
Do
information.
you feel like, and maybe you already do this and I just forgot, offering for people to call you with
Yeah.
questions or concerns?
Yeah, we do. We say if you have any further questions or concerns, call the office. And as a matter of fact, as we've given some of those communications out, I fielded a few phone calls, and I enjoy every phone call I get because it's a chance to just make another connection. And because you're exactly right, to the point you made earlier, when I was able to still protect privacy but share some more of the important information, it really calmed people down.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because what I shared with folks too is that student safety is our number one concern, it's number one priority. So there is no interest in ours to not be as open as we legally can. If we're nervous about something, we take that very seriously, and we do so to protect our students, because that's what we care most about, is their safety. That said, I know it's asking for a lot of trust from parents that we take care of their children every day, and that's a big responsibility. So I can fully appreciate where they come from with their concern.
There's one part of, like, in objective one for the bottom for this school year, 24-25, and one of the things is information shared internally and with the public. We talk a lot about sharing with the community a lot, but I don't know much about how things are shared internally, like when stuff like that happens, like, does it also go out to elementary schools, or can you just share a little bit about?
Sure. Yeah, so I'll actually share a couple of things there. Is that there is definitely a lot of internal communication. Historically, with the superintendent's update, it was given internally before it was given publicly. As I speak with leaders of organized labor, it doesn't seem like that desire or need is there anymore. So now the staff see the same message that the community sees at the same time. But no, there's plenty of communication that goes around. Traditionally, it's going to be a lot more technical stuff. It's going to be things about dates and times and forms and that kind of thing. The principals do a fantastic job. Each of them send a weekly update to their staff, which I have the great benefit of reading, because it's definitely a chance for them to add organization to their school, but also bring some levity to things. And they do a fantastic job. As much as one can build community through email, all 5 of the principals do a great job doing that. But I'm glad you brought up the part about communicating with the public, because I view that as a point of growth, a potential growth area for the district, because I think we do a fantastic job communicating with our families.
Right.
But there's more than our families in our district.
Mhm.
And we hit the pavement pretty hard when it was time for levy and that kind of stuff. But I really want us to consider to just continue to engage with our community members, especially even those that don't have students in our system.
Yeah.
Now, how would that?
I'm not sure. Kind of like what you're saying. I think a couple things. We have we have a mass address list, you know, because of the levy mailers that we sent out. And we used to send out those newspaper updates that went to folks, even if they were a family member or a community member or both.
The newsletter.
The newsletter, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, you know, another thought I had was the potential of having folks sign up for a listserv type system where they can opt in to that superintendent update, even if they're a grandma or a grandpa or a neighbor, right? Let's say they want that update, because right now that update goes to just our enrolled families, but perhaps they want to subscribe to that. And so trying to figure out a way to offer that opportunity for people to sign up for that kind of stuff. Those are a couple of my initial thoughts.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So I like this, thank you, because we came into this not really having a format,
Yeah.
right? I know you had asked for it and I just totally thought, but I guess kind of what I'm thinking about going forward with these is that, yeah, just getting like clarification, like how does the district apply this? Cause I don't necessarily know, so if, you know, if you're willing to answer
Yeah.
questions, I mean, that'd be good, but, so maybe that's part of what I would like to see these sessions go as. I don't know what everybody else is thinking. But
Yeah.
we didn't really like, we just said, let's do it. We don't.
Right. Yeah, I guess this is my thinking was just to, you know, look at what's going well, what could be improved and then suggestions going forward, but.
Well, so what could be improved is how we're gonna do these.
Yeah, right.
Was the paper newsletter cut for budget purposes?
Yeah, it's pretty cost prohibitive to print those things. I mean, those were, do you remember them? They were pretty
Mhm.
heavy duty to do.
I
things.
remember them.
Yeah.
And, you know, like my kids' grandparents
Mhm.
live in the district and they liked getting,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
Because it helped them feel connected and a
Mhm.
part of the community still, even though they're not getting that email messaging
Yeah.
that, you know, the parents do.
I wonder, I think it's thinking about a hybrid approach of maybe that people sign up for that who want it, and that way we're only paying for people that have asked for it versus just, I mean.
Or I think, you
doing
know,
it
a more
digitally.
concise version, like, you know, we have a digital version that is available online, but also even if it's just a, you know, 4-page document, so, you know, what the biggest cost was the fact that it was actually newsprint, right? We
Yeah,
used
yeah.
the folks at the Linden
They were
Tribune to
fancy.
print it,
Mhm.
whereas with a print shop here, and if you could have, you know, print shop print a pretty piece of paper that folds in half and has an address on it, right?
That,
It's gonna have a little less information, but it's still gonna be something.
I like that idea because I think when you ask people to opt in,
Mhm.
you're still missing a whole group of people that would read,
Yeah.
but wouldn't go to the effort to seek it out,
Yeah.
wouldn't go to the website, that wouldn't
Or
go.
miss the chance to.
Right, and you
Yeah.
think about, those are still the people that vote for our levies,
Mhm.
right? And so if we think of it as not just levy advertising.
It's not levy advertising at all.
Because we
No.
can't do that.
We don't do levy advertising.
I'm
but I
sorry,
think it's-
thank you.
Like-
Yeah.
No, but we can't, that's the wrong language.
It's, but I do think we have had a longstanding procedure of the district mailing information and from a legal standpoint, if you have that, you've been doing that practice over and providing factual information about the district, you're in the good
You're not.
in providing factual information about the levy. And so it's not in any way, shape or form levy advertising.
Thank you, thank you.
Make sure.
Well, and would something like that fit into that bulk mail
Mhm.
thing? So
Yeah.
that could help with
Yeah.
postage.
Yeah, I like that idea of a bifold or trifold.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Once you use typing paper, we can do internally. So then it's just the essentially just cost the little bit of paper and,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be that frequent, but I do think, most people do not have children in school.
Mhm.
I think statistics I've read is something like 30% of people either have children or grandchildren or are directly connected to the school one way or another, which means that leaves somewhere around 70% who are not. And yet they own the school as much as parents do, as much as students do. And so we we do need to make sure that we're not neglecting them in our communications.
And showing them what their tax dollars are
Right,
providing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something in it, as we build back our finances, that's something I would like to be able to do. And I don't, and I agree that the newsprint thing was too expensive, but if we can do an internal, I think you can make it look nice.
Yeah.
On two sides of packing paper.
Who put that newsletter, that all together, that big paper?
I know that they contracted with Christy Nason.
Oh, so and then the gathering of all the information that went on there?
She did, like, she was kind of the clearinghouse, like, so I think there was like an article from each principal, Ben would do an article, Mary would do an article. Then Christy would organize it and format it and then get it to the Tribune and they'll print it.
So really like, and that's, I mean, they weren't long. I remember they weren't like huge, giant pieces that they had to write. So that's reasonable to ask staff to contribute in that way.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool.
There's a couple of the things that we've had over the last 4 years now on our strategic plan that really we need to continually remind ourselves to fulfill. And one is which we do, we celebrate school staff and student accomplishments, but when you look at small town newspapers, that's what drives their subscriptions. Getting kids' names, and that's why they do local sports.
Yeah.
So a family will subscribe if they see their kid's name in once every 2 years, or even once every 3 years. And that's, I think, celebrating, getting that information out, I think builds the whole community.
Yes.
I think, and so that's something we do need to pay attention to. And we've got sharing our history, including native history, collaboration with tribal elders. Some of these things can be done on the website at extremely low cost. There was one, getting our good news out. It kind of woke me up. We had an email exchange over the last week or so with Mike Brennan, who was board president when I first joined the board, and he was making the point that we don't get any timber revenue anymore, and so I corrected him, say that, well, temporarily we have a problem, but we have been getting average over $1 million a year since 2017. He didn't know that, and he had been president of the Chamber of Commerce. He was president of the school board, and if he didn't know that, that means that's not very widespread knowledge. So getting our good news out is important, because we know it, but if we don't get it out, people don't even know it exists. So I think incorporating that kind of looking at it from the lens of someone outside of our system, and getting that onto our website also. So it's maybe some of this could be either the superintendent's page or the school board's page, because each school is going to be highlighting the students and the staff, but we also need to look at some of the district-wide things. So
what about
it's
the
just a
board
thought.
submitting some stuff too? Like, we don't really have anything that we put out there.
Or meeting minutes.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, no, I think we could,
Letter from the
just like I
president.
was praising Brian for the narrative, I think we could probably do some narrative.
Yeah,
And I think most the bulk of people would rather read a narrative than a meeting minutes.
I agree.
Yeah.
And some of what you're saying, Wes, is it ties some of the areas I could see for improvement in our communication. Our website, our app, our calendar, they don't have a lot of updating content, and I know that that requires somebody to create that content and babysit it. They constantly be working on that to be a full-time job. But part of the problem with having a more static content is that people stop looking, right? Like I downloaded the app. When there's an update once every 6 months, you stop opening the app, right? So it starts to become, you don't go there anymore, right? And it's the same thing, I think, with our website. The content doesn't update frequently enough to drive people to make that somewhere they go and check, right? And so I'm not quite sure how to balance that out, right? Or like sometimes the calendar doesn't have events in it that you would expect to have those events for the whole district, right? So I stopped checking the calendar, right? And I rely on other streams of information to give me those updates. And so it's like we've got these great tools. If we could leverage them more, it would draw in an audience, I think, because then people would know to go check. Right, so if the board could, if we had periodic narrative that we post on there and people come to expect that, right?
Yeah.
That, those
Yeah,
kinds of.
I think your point there in terms of the calendar is a question we need to ask rather of the staff. Because, you know, we don't have a dedicated person.
No.
How feasible is that? So maybe that's a question that
Yeah.
maybe Nick, you can address at some point. Cause I've checked the website for athletic schedules and I end up just doing an internet search instead. And finding it easier through Firefox than through our website. So but I recognize that we don't have extra hands.
Right,
That's the
exactly.
problem right
So how we can maximize the communication within the capacity that we have. Well, yeah, this is good. Other things that you think, you know, that we'd like to capture as I'm listening to the conversation. I don't see a lot of adding new words to our strategic plan and communication. I see fulfilling the words that we have there.
I like the one thing, like for reaching out for new things, like to create a tactical outreach plan, right? For getting new people out there. I mean, I wrote down some things, not that we're not doing it, but one is, and we talked about this with emergency situations, communicate early and often, right? So if we get something out there early, and if that's another update at noon, whether it's no news or, you know, no real update or anything, but keep people informed that something's going on, and then regular and annual communication with everybody, staff and community members. And like I said, I'm not saying this aren't things we're not doing. It's just something like some words or something we can do moving forward was kind of my plan, thought process. Is there any social media thing that the school district does, or I don't do social media, so I don't.
Yeah,
Our
website is linked with Facebook. So when there is a news post that goes up, it goes to our Facebook feed as well.
Yeah.
And I believe, the high school has its own Instagram account that the principal posts some stuff on. Instagram is usually where some of our younger students will follow and that kind of stuff. But to your point earlier, and kind of a little bit of, yes, and with the communication, specifically with families, I think an opportunity for this district is to ensure that communication is accessible through the narrowing of platforms. I think it's not fair to ask a parent of a third grader to have one platform and a parent of an eighth grader to have a different platform. Whether it's Remind or Seesaw, or I just don't think it's supportive of families to have a multitude of things to have to follow. So I think an important goal for our district needs to be some cohesion around. I know that's not the community piece that we're just talking about. So we know that's a piece here. There's also the piece where we communicate directly with families, and they communicate back with us too, because some of the communication that we use is so one way, it doesn't create that healthy dialogue that folks would prefer probably to engage in person, but with the pace of things going, communicate through a platform or an app. The reason I bring that up is a lot of our neighboring districts are having quite a bit of success with a specific platform that is PK through 12. And so I think it's gonna be an important next step for our district to look at, to see if that's a right fit for us. Because I would imagine if it's going well at Nooksack and Meridian, it's probably could go well here too, I would think. So
No, that makes sense.
It would be like a one-stop.
Yep.
So you're not checking your email for this newsletter from this school and checking something else for,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
And is that different, because when Hazel was here, it was Skyward, that was the only way that I didn't have it, or I would just get on the horn with the teachers. Like,
Yeah,
never-
so Skyward is our student information system,
Okay.
which is where all the emergency contacts, all that kind of stuff is stored. But also there were some schools that were using that as a communication tool because there is a email function in there.
Okay,
But that's more utilitarian for sure. There's nothing, doesn't have the nicer bells and whistles. And again, that's the one-way communication, right? Because the messaging to the school is not, very useful in Skyward. So that's going to be where a platform that's been developed for that purpose is going to have a much better dialogue to it.
Skyward's also the only way you can find out how your kid is doing, their grades and all those.
And that will always be that way, simply because of, as you mentioned, FERPA. There's no agreement strong enough with a connecting platform that can guarantee FERPA, compliance. Because let's say we do use a third-party app that is, this communication system and then they have a data leak, then we're responsible for your grades being leaked, even though we know that right now, if the data leak was Skyward, they're responsible for it. So
is there something that that they're using now, and each school is using something different?
it could vary from school to school, it could vary from classroom to classroom, right? So
Okay.
some teachers are using Classroom Dojo, some are using Remind, which all have strengths to them. And the challenge with a lot of them is they don't have the scalability. And that's the piece, is we need that magical tool that has the scalability to be able to cover PK through 12. And like I said, our neighbors are currently doing it. So that's hopefully somewhere we can go.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll be excited to see, this language, as I understand it, in the strategic plan was created from the ground up, right? And obviously, we're through 2020, created a new plan. So I'll be excited to see what, our district as a whole comes up with for that next. That next look. And all of this stuff here still, much of it still seems relevant.
Yeah, I agree.
So to sum it up, not communication, or more communication to public rather than just family and community. Board should start thinking about putting something out there in some way, and that's something we can come up with. And then hopes and dreams of a newsletter to get back there someday. So that sounds like good goals for now.
And that may be a more streamlined central
That's gonna be
platform.
huge.
Yeah.
K
That's
through,
gonna be a big
PK through 12. Yeah.
Yeah, for future, I think that would be really beneficial for the district.
Yeah, I think, I'm thinking about school board running community narratives on topics for our page. Brian has a good model where he's got a listing of different documents. And then you can click on the document and actually read what it says. But that serves as a table of contents, which I think, if we start to piece something together for the board kind of along that model, I think.
Sure.
I think then we could create documents and then just add them in as a group. So bring them back to the board first, and then we say, okay, let's put this on.
Thanks.
And then any one of us can draft something, and then we bring it back. I think that would be a good way to get that started.
And you know what we could put on there?
What?
Our legislative priorities.
Ooh.
Segue.
Yeah, and our list, so that's next, and I just emailed you two documents, one that's too lengthy to read. I did email it, I think I emailed both of these, maybe yesterday. And so, I don't know if you had a chance, what was those legislative positions, and then just the listing. What I did was go through the listing and check off what I felt were my top 10. And that was what I use as criteria for choosing the top 10 are what's the financial impact to the school district, both from a positive standpoint and from a negative standpoint, if something's gonna cost us a lot without that legislation being in place, or make our staff work so ineffective or inefficient. So those were the criteria, and if you want, I can list off the ones I've chosen, and then if you've had a chance to look, if there were any comments or thoughts or on that, I can just do, there's just 10. So the first was amply funded staffing levels. Next was capital construction grant program, which we're actually in the middle of trying to qualify for now. The third is forest revenue apportionment withholding, which is one that I added to WASDA several years ago, and benefits us a lot. And fourth is full funding of basic education, MSOC funding, protecting local effort assistance, Public Records Act and legal notice requirements, which is one of those from a negative standpoint. We don't receive revenue from that, but it can be a big headache for the administration. And if you miss a date or slip up just one little bit, the courts can award pretty significant awards to anyone who happens to want to sue the school district or just harass.
Right.
And so that's something that I think is necessary for any public entity. Support for special education programs, transition to kindergarten, and transportation fund. Well, those were my top 10. Almost everything on this list is important to us.
Right.
And
'Cause I
so I just had to think, okay, which ones are probably the biggest dollars and otherwise impact for us. But if you
what about the career and technical education funding?
yeah, that's
That was something that was really effective this year. Hopefully it's in alphabetical order.
so for that one, if we were to switch one, so I had 10. So if we were to switch one, I would recommend switching, as much as I don't want to, local effort assistance, LEA. If we, from a dollar wise, I think we could switch career and technical education funding. For that one, I
Was there one on like student learning or academic rigor or something like that.
The academic rigor, and so if you look at the other document I sent is the narrative of the legislative positions. So that's WASDA shall initiate or support legislation funding for innovative and equitable solutions to provide additional opportunities to access rigorous coursework, prepare students for career in college, including but not limited to transition classes, workplace learning, equivalency of courses study, and competency-based crediting. That's, which is important. I mean, like I said, I think just about everything on here is important.
Right. Yeah.
What was the one you said you would remove if we?
The LEA, local effort assistance.
And if I can interject, so I think
What?
we don't receive LEA
Right.
and we likely never will. So
Oh,
just something to consider.
Yeah, we used to get, and it's, it depends on the financial formulas. They used to fund it enough that we got 400,000 a year with that.
Yeah. It's more gonna be east side places, right? Like Yakima and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Just, this is yours.
So
these are your
that-
priorities.
yeah,
well, if we were
That's
gonna
why
get
I
it,
was,
then-
that's why I was suggesting
Because
trading that one.
it's for,
Yeah.
it's where it's enrollment rich with property, with low value property, but we're the opposite. Is
We're
that
not
correct?
there right now.
Yeah, so it's enrollment low and we have decent property compared to the rest of the state. So,
Okay, I would rather remove that and put the CTE funding in. Yeah.
Right, yeah, no, that's a good suggestion.
Yep.
What I'm doing is I figured if we figure on our 10 here now, I will submit the form within make sure we get it in time.
That was the only other one
What's that?
that was the only one that I thought that we should put on there for sure. I mean, that's important.
Yeah.
Applies to us.
Significantly.
Yeah, I like well, it says academic rigor and equity of public education. You know, they always try and slip in equity, which I don't really like that, but I do like the academic rigor part of it.
Was that one on your list, Russ?
Um, Yeah, I guess that's so funding. I'm not sure that I haven't heard of any proposals that actually attach a dollar figure to it.
Oh, so you're just going for
Huh?
you're going for the money.
You should know me by
that. I don't really understand how this works, so just.
Yeah, well, so.
Don't make me read between the lines.
The way this works is, so all of the positions on here are positions that WASDA as an organization supports and WASDA's both legislative staff and contract legislative staff lobby for and testify for, and also try to bring in school directors from throughout the state on when things come up. I sometimes testify on various ones of these, and
You know, another thing we spend minuscule amount of money on, and I wish we did more with, was our highly capable or gifted programs.
Right.
Like, we need leaders, right, to build businesses,
No,
and do things, right? So let's get some funding for those types
Right.
of things, right? Like, if it's this much, you know, can we get that much?
And that's one of WASDA's legislative positions. And so staff and school directors will support all of these positions officially on behalf of WASDA. And which is very important in testifying. If you can tell the legislators, this is a WASDA position, it carries a lot of weight because it's gone through that whole, our whole membership filter, basically. And that's what we decided is that's our position. But the reason for the 10 is where should WASDA staff spend most of its time? And try, and that's, you know, like, for example, MSOX, that's a, you know, 3-alarm fire.
Yeah.
And that's what we're saying to WASDA. They already feel that way, but that's what we're saying by saying, you know, we've gotta get the MSOC, that full MSOC funding. So I guess that's kind of where this is. It won't, not having something on the list won't mean that WASDA won't support it.
Right, we're just trying to prioritize.
Where does it, yeah, putting our 2 cents in.
But putting the most effort. And I think it is good to get, you know, a bit of a variety from, they do get a bit of variety from school districts throughout the state. Although I suspect that every district's gonna check MSOCs. Every district's gonna check amply funded staff levels, and every district's gonna check full funding for basic education.
Because everybody's struggling.
Because everybody's starting with those same things.
Well, I'm good with the list with that one change for the detail.
I agree.
I would, you know, this is because our meeting was only 2 days after this list came out, we didn't have as much time as I would have liked to have gotten it to you so you could actually
Quite the list.
spend amount of time to study it. I mean, that's these are positions I've been, you know, actually have worked on, probably past most of these.
Yeah.
Over the years.
That's why I trust you, Russ.
Huh?
That's why I trust you.
But it's I think building that knowledge of WASDA's list of positions for the whole board is valuable.
Did you say forest revenue apportionment withholding was one of your?
Yeah, that's one I had proposed.
I'm
Yeah.
surprised you added it.
And-
Yeah.
Is
it a ranking order? Yeah, these were, the way that you read them to us were alphabetical, not ranked, correct?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was just reading through the list alphabetically.
Oh,
Yeah, I
It
wasn't
ranked.
reading, we used to do them, you had to rank your top 10 and then rank your top 10 for 1, 2, 3, 4. Now was it just ask for a
Wants
list
the
of the
top
top
10.
10.
Yeah.
No particular rank.
No, that works
But,
for me.
you know, we're getting our forest apportionment now because of Chris Reckdahl having decided that we should get it, but we don't have it in law yet. So, a different superintendent of public instruction could say, hey, you guys don't deserve it.
Why do they get that?
So
They
that's,
have that power to decide that. We already have so many hoops to jump through between the county council and everything else. That's another roadblock.
right. But this is, WASDA positions are primarily for Washington State Legislature. You know, some of them would apply both the federal government, none of them are local governments. So it's either the state legislature or the federal government, but what most of WASDA's lobbying efforts are at the state, because that's where most of our funding comes from. But I encourage you to read through the narrative of what the position statements are for each of those of these positions, so that familiarize yourself with WASDA's positions, because I think it's better than just reading the titles, because then you can really understand what what it is, and I think it gives you a better understanding of how much work we have left with the legislature.
Yeah.
Because once the legislature has taken care of a problem, then we vote to take that position off. And we don't do that very often. Most of them accumulate.
What was the deadline for you to submit our board's final top 10? Do you recall? Was it October 8th?
Yeah, I think it's, yeah, I know I think it's October 8th.
Oh, that's my memory.
Yeah. I'll get it in before the deadline. And that's why I said, I can submit it because you can only submit one per district.
So do we need to vote that we agree, or what's our process?
I don't think it's
There's
really
not an
vote if
action item.
everybody
It's just-
agrees.
Well, we've never voted on it before. It's kind of, I see it's, and you can vote. I'm sure that some districts do. We've left it to the ledge representative,
To make that final call?
but with discussion with the board, but I don't care either way. I mean, we didn't put it down as an action item. And usually I wouldn't want to because it just happened. We had a meeting within that window. Quite often we wouldn't.
Mm.
And then if we depend on voting over it, then we're not gonna submit one. So I would rather just, personally, I think if we have an understanding, then that should work.
I'm okay with that.
I like it.
Okay, well, next up is Director of Finance report.
Yeah, so actually, Brian and I have been chatting, and we think with the new format and just with making sure we are hearing things from uniform voice, that I'll be giving the finance updates as we proceed through this year. Brian will still be here present if there's any questions, but it's just a matter of ensuring that I'm fully aware of what's going on too. It's good practice for me, and yeah, so I'll be the one giving the finance reports from now on. But again, Brian will still be present should there be any follow-up questions.
Hi, Brian.
Anything like that. So. Share my screen. And as I start to share, I just want to remind you that we, being Brian and his team, are just wrapping up year end. And so tonight's, as different than other nights, everything's marked draft tonight. Because things in August are still changing because August 31st is the end of the fiscal year for school districts. So the numbers shared tonight are going to change, but it's where we are right now. It's our best status right now. And then the final report for the year end from Brian to the state will be due October 25th. But he's already hard at work at chipping away at that year end report. Cash balances, just a reminder, not much change there. But still there and still no bus. Yeah.
Wait, in your letter to us, there was something about maintenance, but it didn't say, I assumed it was a bus, because the way that it was worded, it was weird.
Oh, no, it's a maintenance vehicle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
It's
just
not
said
as-
maintenance and I was,
Yeah. It's not as cool and flashy as a
Okay.
bus. That's probably why I downplayed the language a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a maintenance van with like 230,000 miles on it.
yeah,
And like the rear shaft actually has like metal pieces in it.
okay.
And so I
Not
guess that's
safe
not
to
good.
drive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
that's something a little bit different, but it still comes out. So that comes out of capital projects, whereas the vehicle transportation fund can only fund yellow school buses. So that vehicle transportation fund wouldn't be able to fund a new maintenance van for us, but the capital projects fund can.
Mm.
So
So
Okay,
since
police
our
car
general
bus?
funds are $1 million in excess of our loan, do we still feel like that was a good idea to take that loan?
I think so, because in my mind, it's like a zero cost loan, right?
Right.
It's safe. because our payroll is higher than our apportionment. So it's important that we have that safety net there. Should apportionment be even less than we anticipate, or perhaps payroll or AP is higher than we anticipate, we need to be able to cover that. And the reason I say it's no cost is because, you know, that the interest accrued is just, it's our own money, right? So it's not like, we're not paying a lender, so yeah. Yep. And remember, this is last year's data, and so, or sorry, the 23-24 data. So our FTE ended at 1495 with a budget of 1536. So the average, you know, was at 1505, which I think as of today, we're at 1513 today, but that's for the 24-25 fiscal year. So I don't want to confuse you that this is last year's fiscal year. So
Say it again, right now we're at 13.
13.
We budgeted.
Is that right? 1513? Yeah.
And
We budgeted at 1448.
we're at 15. Okay.
So in a more correct direction than last year. Yep. Revenue collected as part of the total. So we've collected more than the projected revenue. Again, these are all still draft numbers. So, you know, the draft water stand fell behind here. These are all numbers to change because August is just a tricky month with it being the year end.
Where would that extra money have come from that we collected?
Right?
Oh, there's 100,000 in a grant from Foundry 10. There was an excess of, let's see, about 400,000 from safety net. And the unbudgeted portion of the transfers from capital that didn't happen in the 22-23 school year was an extra $200,000. So nothing, unfortunately, reliable and sustainable. It was just me pulling money out of every pot I could find,
Right.
which I'll still do. But I wish I could say we were funded at a higher level, but remember the state legislature gave us like $41 extra per kid for EverSox. It was pretty minimal. So,
And that brings up a good point, Brian. The example of Foundry 10, which is a great grant that we got from a private donor in the Seattle area, and we're very grateful for it. However, that is earmarked for a very specific cause. It's buying some new things for the band and the theater arts department as well as CTE. So that's a good example of just because we have this revenue doesn't mean you can spend on whatever you want. So it's going to be important that we remember that when we see revenue, that, you know, that comes along as we talk about fund balance, right? There's, as you know, even if we are, you know, feeling good about a 5 or 6% fund balance, there's gonna be some restricted funds in there that, you know, we can't pay custodians with title lap money. So that's what kind of lends itself to that argument for a bigger fund balance, right? So
yeah, the Foundry 10 money as well, it all has to be spent within a certain timeline. It just so happened that that timeline crossed over the fiscal year. So that easily could have been, I mean, it will be all spent. But right now we have some that we haven't spent.
And that's also why both our district and WASDA have been focusing on lobbying for funds that go to the bottom line. In all my conversations with the legislators, I've differentiated between nice programs that are earmarked versus funds that go to the bottom line. That our biggest need right now is those funds that we can put into the operating budget.
yeah, that's exactly right. Expenditure tracking. This is one that I like to look at because this is one that is, a lot of it is in our control as far, you know, there are student needs that are not in our control. We have a moral and legal obligation to meet the needs of all students. But what we're seeing here is that, you know, so far we've projected to expend less than we anticipated. Revenue yearly comparison. So, as you can see, revenue was, again, all draft.
Is that difference in revenue due to lower enrollment?
It could be lower enrollment. It's also going to be because of regionalization, right? So we lost. That was the first year in which, because we lost a total of 6% regionalization, so it was 3% per year. Like that was the legislature's gift to us, is that even though we're lowering 6%, they gave it to us. You know, we got punched over 2 years instead of just one.
Okay, it was down 3%.
That
So.
was nice.
Yeah, one punch each year, instead of two punches in one.
Yeah.
That's exactly. Mhm. And then another one, I mean, this is where, you know, we had a chance to meet with some labor leaders today, and I think it's important to acknowledge that the hard work that everyone is doing, right? That as you walk across our campuses, there's some pretty strong positive feelings in all of our schools. But I think it's important to acknowledge the work that folks are doing, right? There's been reductions in custodial child nutrition. Our class sizes are perhaps larger than folks have worked with before. And I think that is a testament to the hard work that the team as a district is doing. We had to navigate some hard decisions, and you know, we're not out of the woods yet, but I hope that when people see this, you know, they can see that we're making concerted efforts, but also that the staff who work here should be proud of what they're doing. That when they see that we cut spending, you know, by that much, that they've made some sacrifices themselves, and you know, they can be proud of the work they're doing to keep us sustainable.
Mhm.
Here's the comparison, and you know, as you'll see, this one, this is a different representation here. I prefer this method because it shows you, the green shows you just really how, you know, Brian put it pretty well earlier today when he and I were chatting about the importance of a fund balance. This is why your fund balance must remain at a sustainable level, because you look at those, you know, sure, October is great, but that blip between November and March, the state's essentially telling us you need to sustain yourself because your revenue is going to be lower during those months, right? Whereas, you know, there's that bump again in March and April. This is the reason that you need to have a savings account, because in their infinite wisdom, the state will not to not have the revenue be constant. They intentionally build it this way. So we have to be prepared to navigate the ebbs and flows.
And could you explain that budgeted deficit of the 2.1 million? What are we comparing that to? Is that compared to the 887 number, meaning we're doing better than the budgeted deficit, or?
We are doing better than the budgeted deficit. So we're 887 under for the year, but we originally had predicted that we're going to be under 2.
That too, okay.
Yeah.
Am I capturing that correctly, Brian? So yeah, again, acknowledgement of the hard work of the staff.
Okay.
And we'll get the final, as soon as Brian's ready, we'll get the final cast and concrete numbers, and these are, so don't.
Because I think as a
Don't
matter
bring these home.
Yeah, because I think as a matter of fact, I want to say that the study session for next month might be finance. I think it was intentionally planned. I don't know what date that board meeting is relative to October 25th, but.
Ideally, I'll be done before
Okay.
midnight on the deadline.
Okay. So I don't know what the second October meeting is, but I'm pretty confident the topic that month was finance for a reason, so that way we can talk a lot more about this.
Yeah.
That's my recollection.
you're
at
right.
least.
So just so I understand the way to read this, is the 887 for the year, that's our revenue under expenditure for the year 887. We budgeted 2.1 million, so we're doing approximately 1.2 million better than what we thought. Okay.
1.2 million.
Provisionally.
I'll get back to that word draft. There's the word draft again.
Draft.
There's a final reminder, Ed, just in case.
So, yeah, it's not a published number here.
Yeah.
Because these are working documents.
Danielle, did you have a question about the last thing? You got it.
Actually, I do.
Yeah.
So the 887 that we're under for the year is our guess as of now. What our deficit for the year is. Do we have any additional month that's gonna be added to that? Or are we,
You need any more activity for the month of August?
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, things are still gonna come in and
things
go
are
up.
still coming in, so that's why it's in draft form. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, just today, an hour before this meeting, I discovered that we were invoiced late for one of our grants as a consortium. So we paid money to Bellingham and Meridian that we can't claim in a grant unless the state lets us claim it.
Okay.
So that was an expense that went out with a revenue that didn't come in. It's $13,000. I'm gonna try to reclaim that other through the grant for the school districts.
Okay.
Right, but it's small things like that, as I go through everything line by line and try to just clean everything up. Most of it moves within the accounts without changing the bottom line, but there are things to do like that.
If you had, no, I won't ask you to guess.
Please do.
Please no, it's a draft.
Just wait and
But that
suspect.
87 deficit for this year, does that get added to a deficit that we had last year that accumulates in terms of our, like our balance sheet?
Of our fund balance?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, any deficits you have are gonna stack up that we have to. Okay, last time, what are your questions? I mean, you already asked some, but time for more. Go on.
What was our previous year's deficit? Do you know that?
Do you know, Brian?
I could look it up. Yeah, let me
It's
look.
kind of a balance sheet question, right? Because it's the accumulated.
Yeah,
I have that document handy because it's one I've been referencing in the year-end work. So after the year-end last year. The deficit last year was $1,537,297.78.
right.
So we started with a fund balance in that year of over 3 million and ended with a fund balance of 1.6 because of that deficit.
What, no other questions?
Nope.
Thank you for the great, thanks to both of you.
Yeah,
Lots of work behind the numbers.
But I'd like Nick to recite them.
so yeah, just full transparency, Brian's theory is that if the superintendent says the bottom line enough, that I'll know to work within it, so.
Oh, I was like, is this normal or?
Yeah, no, and it's also, kind of a new approach, and it's a different approach that he and I have agreed on that, it's helpful for me too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Brian and I talk 15 times a day, every day, but it's gonna be important that, the community hear from me about this too, right? Because it's, at the end of the day, it's, I'm the secretary to the board, so, yeah.
And I do feel confident in the knowledge base that Nick has around the budget to be able to give the report and good questions.
So our current format, not a superintendent's report, second meeting.
Right, correct. Superintendent
And,
report will
and
be-
so, next item is meeting schedule, and I hope you had a chance to see the last weekly update. We have school visits scheduled for Friday, October 18th and Friday, November 1st. Is anyone not able to make?
I cannot make the 18th, I'm out of town.
Okay, anyone?
What are those dates again? October 18th.
And November 1.
I'm gonna be on the East Coast on the November 1st.
Okay.
But I can schedule time with both of the principals,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say if we can get 4 at each, that'd be great, but if it's gonna drop below, I can also ask principals to readjust to different Friday.
I'm available.
What's that?
I'm available for both.
I was saying I'd say 4 is probably a good number. 4 or 5 5's ideal, obviously, but it sounds like there's gonna be at least 4
4 at each meeting.
Yeah, so I think that's great. Otherwise, if it was gonna get below 4, I would have then probably asked, I
Yeah.
would have rescheduled it with the principals.
What's the time and location?
Yeah, let me,
It's on the last, so it's.
Okay.
Yeah, check the Nick's last weekly update from, I think it's September 20th.
and it'll be in this one still.
Oh,
I
okay.
decided to copy and
Okay.
paste it back to back. So I realized that we discussed it like at a 30,000 foot view, but things get lost, so.
I immediately put it in my calendar. Okay, so that, and then the next school board meeting is the 10th. Is that right? Okay.
Is that right?
What's it?
Next school board meeting is October 10th. Yeah. That means that the study session should be the 24th, which is the day before the year end is due, so
Oh,
hopefully
sweet.
Brian will have it by then.
No pressure.
Yep.
It's by midnight on Friday.
And I'll double check that, I think that was the topic. And I need to, I also need to share out the schedule that you all developed for the study topics.
Yeah, that would be great. I'll try
Yep.
to come up with something.
Yeah, next, the 24th is finance, facilities and operations.
I'm gonna be gone October 24th.
You can be gone the 24th.
October
Oh.
24th, yeah.
You wanna zoom in?
I
You
won't
doing
be
something fun? Okay.
Is that-
Don't. As if he's going away for work, he could still zoom in, but he's doing something fun.
Yeah, no kidding.
He's not.
Remember, it's recorded and we'll speak up.
So, anybody else need to miss the 24th?
No.
So we'll start, we'll have comfortably have fun. Okay, well, if that's, I think we've reached the end of our business, so conclude the meeting. 7:40.
Thank you.
It's really
Not a record.
No, but
No, but
still quite a bit of stuff for the time, I feel like.
we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
for-
Hey,